Hey all, Taves here, back playing some more Planet Zoo, and this is the fifth and final part of my Seal Beach project. So we've been doing this for about 3 months, I think. Maybe some would say that's a little long for a, for a single habitat. But I think this is going to be the basis of a new zoo project that I'm going to be working on. So this episode's lots of little details, kind of finishing touches to lots of places. As ever, there's the speed build up front here, and then we'll do a tour towards the end. I am planning to upload this to the workshop, so it'll be up as a park file and up as a actual habitat. It's there's obviously a bit of work to get it to be used as a single habitat or replaceable habitat in your zoos. So I will try and make sure I include some instructions and things to that. So yeah, when I kind of started this, it was inspired by a couple of different habitats that I'd seen pictures of. Originally, one in Hawaii was kind of the original kind of thought, but then it kind of just ran off from there, and I did the thing with the arena and all this sort of stuff. I'm pretty happy with it so far. It's obviously quite piece heavy, so be warned if you're planning to use this as part of a big zoo, you're going to probably struggle, because it's by itself as a single habitat. It's quite large, sort of physically large, and then obviously piece count wise it's pretty large. Lots of little bits and pieces, lots of little details, kind of the way I like to do my stuff and things. Hence it's taken me 3 months. I started this pretty much as soon as in fact I think I started this on the day that the Aquatic pack came out. It's been various different videos, various different streams. As I said, this is episode 5. And so what I'm doing really at the start here is just kind of finishing off some of the path detailing. We start working on a sign here. This sign goes through a couple of different iterations. There's actually a fairly big jump. I kind of needed something that introduced the area. I'm sort of thinking to myself how this would work in context of as a larger part of a zoo. So this path that we're kind of seeing here is obviously a fairly kind of major path in the zoo. So needs to have some sort of kind of little introductory sign to the habitats, I guess. I actually don't think this is too excessive size wise, too sort of realistic pinniped habitat. So what we've got here, obviously when we do the tour you'll see this in more detail, and if you haven't already seen it up to this point, there's a lot of kind of there's a lot of attention paid to the backstage areas and how the separation areas and all that sort of thing, as well as kind of having the different pools that the seals can be kept in for guest facing purposes. So we've got the arena, and then we've got the kind of upper pool and a bunch of backstage pools and separation areas, as I said. So this sign was pretty simple. It actually ended up being, originally I was doing it as kind of a wave thing. And it's supposed to be that where you see the word seal there is actually the sea, and that's the kind of it lapping on the beach sort of thing. That was kind of the idea. I think it looks all right. It's not quite the theme that I was going for, but I think it looks all right. Again, that's the sort of thing that's pretty easy to replace if you wanted to replace that in your own zoo. So an idea that I nicked from Estan Wolf and Beyond Root TV's swamp habitat or swamp build that they've been working on for a while. I think they're still working on it. Was to include the kind of power lines and stuff. I've seen it in a few people's zoos. I'm not sure if they originally did it, but I saw it on their creation and sort of nicked this idea. So just to add some, just to add some more detail and some more depth and realism and stuff. So creating this kind of pylon thing. I don't go too crazy with this. It's just kind of starting off of the edge of where we are and then heading towards the major building, or the actual backstage habitat building. And the actual thing itself is pretty simple. As you saw, put some posts in, and I'm just trying to create this idea of there being some little like electrical box up here, and Yeah, and so just creating this little sign. The little, I have to say, the little font pieces are so handy for just so many different uses because they've got no kind of depth to them. They're really adaptable, being able to use for all sorts of purposes. Just trying to create some sort of little, as I said, little, almost like a little indication that this has got power in it. I ended up just kind of doing that. Nothing too complicated. All pretty simple. And then the trick is to use the font pieces as like a wire. So we don't really have anything that's kind of thin enough or of the right sort of of the right sort of shape or size to be a wire. But actually these work pretty well. And from the ground, you'll see from the ground they actually look pretty decent. Obviously they're very, very, very thin. But if you look at that view, actually they look pretty convincing. So I created these pylons, basically just created a pylon with like a half of a length of wire coming out of it, dangling down. The trick was to get the kind of that sort of sag right. That was the bit that was took me a few attempts. Obviously I cut some out in the speed build here. And then once you've got one, then it's pretty easy just to sort of double it up and use that. So I ended up sort of stretching it off of the screen or outside of the habitat and then over to this to my big backstage building. So then just a little bit of a joint. And I think all of these things just, I don't know, they're just, you almost kind of don't really notice them that much when you're actually kind of walking around, but I think they just help add a sort of a depth to it. And I just kind of, I don't know why I take such pleasure in doing these sorts of little details, but I don't know. I really enjoy doing backstages. I've talked about it so much, but it's kind of my thing with the game. Okay, so we're back into the area. We're now working on the area that we featured in the last episode, which is the kind of prep area. So if you remember, I created those two little prep station buildings. If you've seen that episode, so there they are in the background. These two little prep stations. And then I'm putting in a little fence that's sort of what's supposed to look like a little bit of a temporary fence that kind of separates that section off from being somewhere that the guests can go. So we've got the kind of where my camera is at the moment is a bit that the guests can walk through, and then everything on the other side of that where the Jeep is all stuff that's kind of considered to be a little bit more out of bounds. So just putting some little signs and stuff like that, and a lot of this stuff is sort of just implied detail. You'll see my fence there. I've done quite a lot of work on that fence to just get it looking sort of pretty, just enough jankiness to it to feel real. And then detailing this path and putting some curbs in and stuff, and little bits of detail and stuff like that. I like having the contrast between the jankiness of the sort of stuff, the less kind of trodden paths that the guests would go down. Obviously, I've left this all because I don't know how I'm going to incorporate this habitat into a new zoo. I've left it all kind of open to whether that's going to be a path or just a staff path back there. And separating the entrance into the arena off. So again, little staff gate through a hedge here. Pretty simple stuff. Create this little gate, sink it into some of the hedge pieces. Again, some detailing. So this is actually, you see these quite often in sort of public spaces, but little kind of protector things for trees and stuff. You see them actually quite a lot in habitats, but you also see them quite often just in public spaces where the business or the zoo in this case is trying to protect the base of that tree. And then we're inside, so back inside inside that gate I've just created, you see the little hedged gate there. Just finishing this little area off. So this was pretty much the last little area to finish off. A little bit of backstage area again. This gate goes down and comes down to the back of the arena, running alongside the seal habitat here. So just creating some flower beds and things. All pretty simple back here. Nothing too complicated. just some concrete flower beds and bits and pieces. None of this stuff needs to be particularly complicated because it's all just rough and ready, janky backstage area. So just using the brackens and the nettles and the brambles and stuff like that, just the bits that would be kind of just okay just to be left and that they wouldn't really worry about it. This was a fun little thing actually, just creating, I've got a bunch of these different entrances, implied entrances into this habitat, because it kind of always annoys me a little bit that in the game you're forced to have just one entrance. And that just never feels very realistic, especially when you've got a really big habitat like this. There would be multiple ways into that enclosure. So yeah, just created this little gate, pretty simple little thing made out of the metal beams and stuff. Okay, welcome back to the tour. So we'll do a little bit of a tour. This is the final tour. Sad times, or you'll see it again. Sad for me. It's always kind of nice to end something, but as I said, it's not the end of this habitat. It will appear in a future zoo, which I'm just about to start. So here's the pathway, just kind of swinging around. We'll take a tour to the left. We'll cover some stuff we've seen before. But yeah, here's my kind of that little border path that you saw me putting in, and there's the power lines and stuff over the top. No guessing at the moment, just keeping it nice and running smoothly so we can get it. There's my sign. Ended up adding a little kind of seal dude in there. As I said, it's supposed to look like it's kind of a beach thing, just a kind of little implied stuff and things. So if you remember from if you've seen the first episode of this series, what I talked about was that there's two pools. You'll see this in a second. We'll come back down the path on the right there. But yeah, it's supposed to be, obviously this is a taiga setting for this actual zoo, but I had decided that I would make it that the habitat itself kind of represented both the taiga and sort of slightly more temperate environment. I have sort of taken some liberties with some of the foliage. Obviously you'll see some sort of tropical plants and those sorts of things in here just for some richness. So we come up to our first little kind of viewing vista point, and our little first education area, so that our educator is waiting there patiently. Just a nice little shaded area, supposed to be a little view into the upper areas of the habitat. So yeah, because they use all this sort of little pool. It's supposed to be a little basking pool, a little lounging pool, with like a shaded cover and stuff like that. Back there, they do go up there. They go up there because there's feeders up there, so they tend to spend a reasonable amount of time going up and down through that area. I wanted to make sure this is something I don't do particularly often, but generally is a bit of a rule of thumb. I try and avoid having guest viewing areas overlooking other guests, but it was kind of necessary here because I wanted this lower area to have a view into the water, but the people up here to get a slightly different view. Obviously when you're down there on that lower section, you don't get a view into the habitat in quite the same way. So here comes one of the seals coming over, and we'll make our way round. As you see the keeper coming round on the little kind of floating jetties there to clear up. Let's go down this path then. So I've just put these I put this kind of edge fence in all the way round, but obviously that would be off to some other bits of the zoo. So let's make our way down and round, and we'll swing back up that pathway and then take a left. So yeah, this is obviously a view into the underwater section. And as I said, you don't get from here. Obviously, you don't get a view of that. You don't really get a view of them up there on that little pool there. Hear them farting away. Here's my little splash zone. So obviously the seals can get very close to the edge of the habitat here and potentially splash water over the top, so that's what's supposed to be suggested there. Kind of a bit murky, but sometimes you do get a good view into there. Some signs and things, some little education bits. I really like putting in little education details. I think we did those in the second episode. So we'll make our way back up this path, past this little. This is supposed to be, I don't know, I think this was supposed to be like a little biosphere sort of thing. So this was supposed to just be like newts and whatever in there. So we'll head up this way and then we'll take a left into the arena, past the new arena sign. So here we have our first little sign on the arena. So 33 seat arena, supposed to be kind of almost like a little wave slash kind of scales thing, education board. Coming up to the top section of the arena. So we'll come up the top section and then head around the bottom. Some more signs and things talking about the schedule of shows and whatever. Again, you see the wire coming up overhead. Here's my canopy. This was the bit that was mostly inspired by what was this? I think this might even have been like Edmonton Zoo or somewhere like that. I'm probably completely wrong about that. I think it was a piece of concept art that I saw. So here's the arena, as I said, 33 seat arena, and we have this kind of upper and lower section to this. And again, another guest talk point. Go back into the previous bits in the stream, in the playlist. So like episode 1 and 2, I think you'll see this all kind of working. And this is the deeper pool, so that's the upper pool up there. The seals themselves have got access into all of this, so they come down this slide. Actually, you kind of see one just chilling out over there. And this pool itself is the 4-meter section, so the seals do dive down and swim into that for the feed. And then we got this kind of little jetty dock implied bit up here, just supposed to be some, almost like the idea of some net houses and stuff. It looks like a feed is underway, so they're all making their way down here right on time. Yeah, so I think this was kind of the original challenge, was to have these different elevations of the water, and this is obviously the actual kind of seal beach part of it. So you see that there's no barrier here. It's all kind of just tricked in barriers so that they can't traverse this. But obviously this is all closed off to the seals anyway from guests. So my actual arena is pretty simple. Quite a simple little seating areas. We can actually go down if we just go down a layer. I love the noises they make. So from here you can see that is the access into the backstage area for the seals. So there's this little gate. We'll see this kind of little channel. The seals actually will swim up and down there. Oh, that's nice timing. So that was a keeper going into the habitat. I really liked that sight line. I always wanted to keep that sight line. It's not something that the game particularly encourages you to do, but I like the idea of guests being able to see keepers in and out of the habitat, but not like too much, not like here. So you see them just crossing that bridge and going into the habitat, or coming back in that case. So we'll go back round this way, and we'll go back round to the main path. We'll come out, so we're coming out of the bottom of the arena. So there's some bits and pieces differences here. Obviously that top section is a bit more accessible. This lower section, just I think it would be lovely to have a system where you could have kind of routing for guests, like in and out, one-way systems and that sort of thing. Right, so we'll head on down this way, following this main path. As you can see, my kind of planted flower beds and stuff. We'll come on down this way. and we should see, yeah, okay, so this is the backstage. This is that little backstage gate. Let me just take you through here. So this is the little hedged gate that we saw in the speed build there. Stick our head on through here. So this brings you to, basically brings you down to the back of the arena. So if we come down this little path here, all pretty simple. So obviously things are a little bit more janky now. There's that little gate actually into the habitat. We'll head that way in a minute. Little maintenance area. An implied gate for staff to go from the backstage part of the arena into the actual arena itself. Excuse me after you, sir. Little gate and things here. So that's my little control switch. This control switch is supposed to be for operating anything they kind of need to for the show. And then, as I said, that will be, in theory, the idea is that is switching on and off the gate so they can come through that gate. They do dive down underneath that gate. They traverse the whole of the habitat. I see one just chilling over there, but I'm sure we can get through. Right, so let's head on back this way then. So this is all stuff, some of this stuff is new, added in this episode. Some of this is just a bit of a final recap before we move on from this habitat. So we will go up this way, make our way up, doing a left turn, and follow round and look at these. We'll go into the actual habitat itself. So that is leading into the habitat, and then we have a prep area. So these two little prep buildings that I mentioned, and the little janky backstage area. This is our little prep station with the tiles and the little wash basins and stuff. So this is supposed to be actually for food prep. So you know, washing fish that are going to be fed, some little barrels of food and stuff, and a little prep desk. Little bits and pieces, just some detail. None of this is actually kind of used or interacted with at all by the keepers, unfortunately. Okay, we've just arrived in time for feeding. So it's a bit of noise here, but we'll hurry on this way. So we won't go over the bridge because it does work, but in the camera that I'm in, it will. I don't think I can actually fit over there, but obviously you've seen the keepers heading up and over there. So that's that little access way back to the arena that we saw. Then we'll head down this left turn. So this is again, we mentioned this I think in episode 2. I think this was. So the purpose of this gate is to separate off the seals from this backstage area, but it actually has got a bit of a trick purpose that it really is about routing the keepers across the bridge, because I really wanted the bridge to be used by the keepers because I'd used it, but I wanted, or that I'd made it, you know, usable, but I wanted the seals to not have to get stuck over here, because unfortunately the seals get boxed up and sent back to the gate. So the seals themselves take this right turn, but you'll see his head is too tall for that gate, so he actually takes a left turn. That was a little solution suggested by one of my viewers on stream, which is really helpful. So you get little bits and pieces so that we could keep this was an important thing that I wanted to make sure I did, was to keep some of the original trees inside the habitat, but obviously not in a way that they would be accessible by the animals or would interfere with the animals themselves. So we carry on down this little route. Again, there's supposed to be multiple ways into this habitat, multiple ways of getting in and out with vehicles, etc. So another gate here. And I talked in the speed build about the separation areas. So this is the first of those separation areas. And actually, if you look at the guidelines for pinniped habitats, they do talk about things like isolation areas for injured or sick animals, or just animals that you want to be keeping them separate. So this is a really small little isolation area, and the guidelines do talk about the fact that there are exceptions that can be made for small for smaller tolerances of size and stuff like that for those sorts of purposes. So we won't go that way yet. We'll just stick our nose. We'll come. In fact, we'll come back that way. We'll go up this way a little bit. So again, there's a little view of the arena. There's a little kind of serviceable, a little service block, a little building that I built, basically a little shed, which is supposed to house the controls or the mechanism for the back of this gate. So there's the gate itself at the bottom of the ladder. You see one ducking under. Hopefully they're actually swimming in and out. Hopefully they can actually get through. Yeah, okay, there he goes, under the bridge. Right on time. Yeah, so they duck down and swim out, in and out happily. Obviously the idea is that when the keepers don't want the animals in that main pool, they just drop this gate, and that shuts this whole kind of backstage area off from them. So we'll do a left turn through another backstage area, which is a maintenance area. So again, plenty of jankiness. Again, I think this was on one of the more recent episodes, but this little create these little water filters and stuff. Obviously I've got quite a lot of water in here. I've got water in both this backstage pool area, but also obviously in the two guest facing areas. So heading on through. Again, we'll come back this way in a second. In fact, we'll do that now. We'll just go through here for a second. So here is this is effectively where they get locked up at night. So a little backstage, another little backstage pool. And we have the main show pool and training area with the tiling and the pools. We'll come back through that door in a minute. So if we head on back this way, there's a lot to cover. There's a lot to cover. We're nearly there though, actually. We're getting close to nearly there. So a little ramp up again, another little pool, another little gate. It was really important to make sure that I could I wanted to make sure that I had loads of different ways in and out, as I said. If we come up here, let's see if I can actually squeeze past you, big fella. Oh. So these are actually, this sort of floating jetty thing is using one of the, it's the kind of the little pontoon section, but also this barrel bit is the upside down habitat enrichment thing that's got the kind of little hole in the middle. And we can actually, can we get around that way? No, it's a little bit narrow for us, but the keepers can make it around there, as we saw. So that's back right where we started, that first viewing area, that first education point. Okay, so we'll back up towards the seal house. We'll do a left turn now for some new stuff. We'll come down this ramp and we'll take the gate on the left here. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I did all these little things. I think I talked about this in a previous episode, but made sure where there was guttering and that sort of thing, that the seals couldn't get anywhere near that. So can we jump through that gate? Yes, we can. Okay, so again, backstage. Again, I don't know whether this is going to be bordering onto another habitat or not. So kept this all pretty simple back here. Some little parking areas and things. Again, little power generators. And we'll do we'll poke our head through on the right. Just want to make sure I give everybody to do the justice of everything. Oh, we're right on time. So we've got another guy coming out. So this is actually on the right here. This is a separate habitat. So yeah, in here we just have a little separation area for a newborn, the newborns and the mother. That's supposed to be what this is, like a kind of little maternity pool and stuff. And then obviously once they are Once these guys are mature enough, this gate will be opened and they'll be put back through into the main pool with the other guys. Okay, right, back outside. We're nearly at the end actually. So a couple of little bits and pieces, a little trailer. As you see, I just filled in all these little bits and pieces, these little details, some more jankiness. And this brings us round. This brings us back round to the path that we saw me adding in the speed build there. Excuse you. So yeah, appreciate anyone watching. This is a little bit of a longer one than usual. As I said, it will be, if I haven't uploaded everything by the time of this video coming out, it will be out very soon. Appreciate anyone who's watched the whole, followed the whole series up until this point. And if you've been in any of the live streams, I very much appreciate that. Appreciate your ideas and your contributions and things. And that's it. Yeah, my name is Toves. There will be a little cinematic, probably a little cinematic episode coming out. I'm not sure exactly when I'll do that. Probably fairly soon. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Very much appreciate it. It really helps me out. It's free to you to do, but yeah, it makes a big difference to me. Thank you very much for watching. I shall catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy.